This session covers the basic concepts of operating a forklift safely and prepares you for hands-on driver training. By the end of this session, you will be able to understand how a forklift works and how operating a forklift is different from driving a car. Understand the basic principles of operating a forklift safely and skillfully. Identify the hazards of operating a forklift in the workplace. Apply the general principles of safe forklift operation. And know how to properly inspect and maintain a forklift.
Why is it necessary to have special training in operating a forklift? Forklifts can be very dangerous. In an average year, 100 people die in forklift-related accidents. Tens of thousands of forklift-related injuries occur each year, and about 20,000 of these result in lost workdays. Common forklift-related injuries include hitting a pedestrian with a forklift, tipping over on a forklift, falling from the forks or from a platform positioned on the forks, falling from a ladder that is struck by a forklift, and being struck by material that falls from a forklift. Specialized forklift safety training helps reduce these types of injuries. Federal safety regulations require forklift operators to have special training. According to the Code of Federal Regulations, in particular 29 CFR 1910-178, anyone who operates a forklift must receive training before he or she can operate it. And operators must demonstrate competency in knowing the characteristics of a forklift, including how forklifts are different from cars, understanding the operating environment of the forklift, including floor surfaces and space conditions, and knowing how to inspect and maintain a forklift. Now we'll describe the basic features and characteristics of a forklift.
This illustration shows the basic features of a typical forklift. Most forklifts have certain features in common. You need to know what these features are and how to use them properly and safely. Take a moment or two to study this illustration and identify the features of a typical forklift. Now, we'll review the basic characteristics of forklifts, especially the differences between a forklift and a car. Note that forklifts behave differently from cars in a number of important ways, especially in turning and when contacting objects. The rear of a forklift swings in the opposite direction of the turn. As the diagram shows, when turning left, the rear of the forklift swings to the right. That means anyone or anything on the right-hand side of the forklift will be hit. The impact of a forklift when hitting other objects is magnified compared to a car because of its greater mass. A forklift hitting an object at 5 miles per hour does the same damage as a car going 30 miles per hour. Forklifts are often driven backward, especially when unloading cargo or when carrying a load that obstructs the forward view. The final difference between a forklift and a car is that forklifts are operated with one hand on the wheel and the other hand on the controls.
This slide shows an example of a forklift nameplate. You need to know why the forklift nameplate is important. First of all, OSHA requires all forklifts to have legible nameplates that are specific to the forklift and any attachments it has. You should report any forklift that does not have a nameplate. The nameplate contains information about the weight of the forklift, the proper tire size and pressure, the type of fuel it uses, and any attachments it has. The nameplate lists the capacity and load center of the forklift, probably the most important information for you to know. The capacity is the maximum weight of a load that can be safely lifted to the forklift's maximum height, assuming the center of gravity of the load is within the rated load center. The load center is the distance between the vertical face of the forks and the center of gravity of the load. Take a moment to study the nameplate shown here and become familiar with how to find the important information you need for safe operation. Let's learn more about the center of gravity of a load and why it's important to understand what it means. The center of gravity is the balance point of the load. That is, the exact point on which the entire load will balance. For loads that are composed of consistent material, the balance point will be near the center of the load. If the load is inconsistent, that is, it contains materials of different weights and densities, the load center will be on the side with the heaviest material. For example, if a pallet contains bricks on one side and pillows on the other, the center of gravity would be closer to the side with the bricks. If possible, a load should always be picked up on the side that is closest to its center of gravity. This helps keep the weight of the load closer to the forklift and reduces the risk of the load falling off or causing the forklift to tip over.
The stability triangle is a concept that you should always keep in mind when operating a forklift to avoid actions that could cause the forklift to tip over. The top illustration shows an unloaded forklift. A typical forklift has a 3-point suspension, with the weight supported by the 2 front tires and the center of the rear axles. This creates a triangle. Its center of gravity is shown by the gray circle right in the middle of the triangle, which is also right below where the operator sits. For safe operation, the center of gravity of a forklift that is carrying a load must stay within this stability triangle, or else the forklift will tip over. The middle illustration shows the center of gravity when the forklift is carrying its maximum rated load. The centers of gravity of the load and of the forklift are shown by the gray circles, and the combined center of gravity is shown by the black circle near the front edge of the stability triangle, but still within the triangle. The bottom illustration shows the center of gravity for a fully loaded forklift when the load's center of gravity is too far away from the vertical face of the forks. The black circle is beyond the edge of the stability triangle, and the loaded forklift will likely tip forward. These illustrations show some examples of how a forklift can tip over. In the top illustration, the center of gravity is on the side of the stability triangle. This might be caused by turning a corner, having an unbalanced load, driving into a pothole, or traveling on a sloping surface. In the middle illustration, the center of gravity is near the front of the stability triangle. This might be caused by the forklift carrying its maximum load, the mast tipping forward, the forklift stopping abruptly, the forklift quickly accelerating in reverse, or the forklift driving up a ramp. In the bottom illustration, the center of gravity is near the rear. This could be caused by tilting the mast back, stopping abruptly when traveling in reverse, quickly accelerating forward, or driving up a ramp. Combinations of actions or circumstances could also cause the center of gravity to shift outside the stability triangle and tip the forklift over. For example, a forklift that turns a corner while driving up a ramp could shift the center of gravity too far backward and to the side, causing a tip over. A forklift moving forward with a capacity load could tip forward if forced to stop abruptly. Or, a forklift turning a corner with an unbalanced load could tip over if it drove into a pothole.
Forklift attachments such as carton clamps, drum clamps, paper roll clamps, rotators, and push-pull elements can affect the capacity of a forklift in a number of ways, including attachments can change operating clearances by extending the length and width of the forklift. Attachments can change the capacity of the forklift by adding weight. For example, if the attachment weighs 1,000 pounds, then the capacity of the load you can carry is reduced by 1,000 pounds. Attachments usually change the stability and center of gravity of the forklift. For example, if an attachment moves the load away from the vertical face of the forks, that will reduce the maximum load the forklift can carry. Next, let's discuss the hazards of operating a forklift. Most accidents with forklifts involve pedestrians. The most obvious causes of accidents involving pedestrians are Having an obstructed view, the operator cannot see the pedestrian because of a load or an obstruction in the path. Turning the forklift toward a pedestrian who is in front of or alongside the forklift. Speeding so that the forklift can't stop in time to avoid the pedestrian. Being unaware of a forklift nearby, and carrying passengers on the forklift. This is forbidden, as is any other kind of horseplay on or near a forklift. Can you think of other examples of hazards involving forklifts and pedestrians? Some forklift hazards are caused by the conditions present in the environment where the forklift is operating. Here are some examples. A non-electric forklift operating in a poorly ventilated area, which could allow the buildup of carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide from the forklift. A work environment with ramps, which can increase the chance of a forklift accident. Crossing railroad tracks, which can unbalance a forklift. Operating and braking on slippery floors. Operating on dirt and gravel. Or poor lighting. There are many other possible hazards of a particular work environment that might cause a forklift accident. These include pits or openings in the floor, congested or narrow workspaces, and the presence of flammable or combustible material. Load-carrying hazards include working around loading docks, carrying loads that block the forward vision, and stacking and unstacking on racks. Where do these hazards exist in our facility? Now let's turn to the basic principles of operating a forklift safely. The first step towards safe forklift operation is conducting the pre-operational inspection. Conduct the inspection at the start of each work shift to ensure that the forklift will work properly. According to OSHA, 1 in 15 forklift-related accidents are caused by improper maintenance. A thorough pre-operational inspection will identify maintenance problems before they cause an accident. Follow the pre-operational inspection checklist and don't skip any items. Complete and sign the checklist.
Here are some of the most fundamental safety rules for forklift operation. Only authorized drivers may operate a forklift. Always report any forklift-related accidents as quickly as possible. Always wear your seatbelt. No one should ever stand under upraised forks. If the hydraulic system fails, anyone standing under forks could be killed. Operate the controls only when sitting in the driver's seat, and never block exits or access to emergency equipment with a forklift. Here are some important things to remember if you are ever in a forklift that tips over. Again, always wear your seatbelt. You could be killed by being thrown out. Do not try to jump clear of a tipping forklift. You could be crushed by the overhead guard or the mast. Hold firmly onto the steering wheel. Brace your feet and lean away from the direction of the fall.
Loading and unloading a forklift must always be done safely. Never overload the forklift beyond its rated capacity. Check the capacity on the nameplate and know how much your load weighs. It does not help to try to increase the capacity by adding weight to the rear of the forklift. In fact, this is very dangerous. Be sure to locate the center of gravity of the load. Inspect the load for stability, projections, and damage to pallets before lifting it. If the load is unstable, restack it, and if necessary, secure it with straps or ropes. For a wide load, spread the forks as wide as possible so that the load will fall inward if it becomes unstable. Only use the rear towing pin for towing. Never drill a hole in the forks as a way to tow something or as a place for a chain hook. This ruins the integrity of the forks. Remember these safety rules when traveling in a forklift. Look in the direction you are traveling. That means looking behind you before and while backing up. Keep your body inside the cage. The cage is there to protect you. Keep the forks low when traveling. Keeping them raised reduces stability and could result in a tip-over. Sound the horn at corners, aisles, doorways, and anywhere else that you might not see someone or someone might not see you. Don't speed. A safe speed is one at which you can quickly and easily stop if you need to. Finally, check your clearances. Check overhead before lifting a load and check your turning clearance because the rear end of the forklift will swing wide. Here are more safety rules for traveling in a forklift. Avoid driving over loose objects or holes. Doing this could cause a tip-over. Never carry passengers. They don't have a seat or a seatbelt and could get killed in an accident. Always remember that pedestrians have the right of way. Stay a safe distance from the edges of ramps and loading docks. Don't eat or drink while operating a forklift. These create a distraction that is unsafe. And never engage in horseplay on or around a forklift.
When traveling on ramps or near railroad tracks, follow these guidelines. Don't make turns on a ramp. It's a good way to tip over. Keep the load facing upwards on a ramp or hill. This helps keep the combined center of gravity near the center of the stability triangle. Drive slowly, especially on ramp downgrades. Extra weight decreases the effectiveness of your brakes. Cross railroad tracks on the diagonal, which helps keep the forklift stable. And never park within 8 feet of the center of a railroad track. Your forklift could be struck by a passing train. Here are 4 good safety habits when loading or unloading trailers from a loading dock. Inspect the dock plate for cracks and be sure it is properly secured. Check the condition of the trailer floor and make sure there are no holes that your forklift could fall into. Make sure the trailer wheels are chocked, and make sure that the nose of the trailer is supported by the tractor or a fixed jack. When parking a forklift, remember these safety rules. Don't park in a way that blocks an exit or access to emergency equipment. Lower the forks to the ground so that no one can get under the forks. Set the gear shift to neutral. Always set the parking brake, and turn off the key.
Refueling or recharging forklifts is an important part of their operation that needs to be done safely. For forklifts that are fueled by propane, follow these very important safety precautions. Never smoke around propane. It is a highly combustible gas that can catch fire or even explode. Report any propane leaks immediately. Signs of a leak include a distinct odor, hissing sound, and frost on the fittings. Wear gloves and safety glasses when refueling with propane. There may be additional PPE requirements, such as goggles or a face shield.
Here are the key points to remember about this session on forklift safety. Know the main hazards of forklifts, which include pedestrians, environmental conditions in the workplace, and loading and unloading. Position loads as close as possible to the vertical backrest. Remember what you learned about the center of gravity of a load and the stability triangle. Always conduct and document a pre-operational inspection before operating a forklift. Always follow the safe operating rules of the road. And finally, refuel or recharge your forklift in properly ventilated areas, following all safety rules and wearing proper PPE. This concludes the session on forklift operator safety. Please be sure to go back and review any information that is not completely clear using the back or rewind buttons below. If you still have questions, be sure to see your supervisor or trainer.